definitely hear him now. Well, I can hear that.
Okay, how about now?
That seems to be working.
Oh, thank God for that.
All right.
Good Lord, if your life...
Say something.
You're the fucking host. You're supposed to say something.
Okay.
You're supposed to bring us in gently. You're supposed to guide me in.
Guide you in like a
Yes.
Israeli missile. Okay, so...
No, like a Korean missile.
Because
They're called Typo Dong. Guide my dong in.
Guide your dong. Right.
Yes.
Dear chosen undead, here's a few things you'll need to know if you want to make your way through Lordran without dying. Dear chosen undead, if you want to be the one who's gonna make it through it.
Welcome to a very special episode of Dem Drunk Blokes Talk Shit. Well, we're not talking shit. Today we're talking Dark Souls with our resident Dark Souls expert, Dalek. Say hello, Dalek.
Deepest lore. Apparently, hello, I'm DalekSex, the voice of sex on Twitter, should you feel so inclined for me to do some things to you. Possibly orally.
Orally.
Anyway, let's skip the knob gags. I'm coming in your ears now.
Yeah, go Dalek. Come in everybody's face, neck and chest. Oh, and ears.
Well, now you've just made it dirty.
I made it dirty.
Yes.
Okay.
You have no class, sir.
I have a degree.
I challenge you to a duel.
What would you like to duel with?
Now you're reminding me of certain internet videos I've seen, and we'll get off that quickly. I understand that you're not feeling so good.
I'm not. I've had a very rough week looking after the people I look after, and it's just getting worse.
Would you say I don't feel so good for me?
I don't feel so good for you.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Now say, don't let me go. I don't want to go, Mr. Stark.
I can't say that because all these references. I haven't seen that film yet.
Oh, I am Groot. Okay, thanks very much for that. Sorry, I've been thrown out of the cinema 3 times for wanking to that scene.
Again, still haven't seen the scene, but it's slowly being leaked to me by the internet at large.
I'm leaking now.
Well, when are you not?
I'm sweating like Joseph Fritzl on an episode of Grand Designs.
Oh, wow. You've got these ready and primed. Okay, so...
Cocked, you might say.
Could say that. So, Dalek, this is your idea, your baby. What are we doing?
Yes, it's my baby, like Murgo, or like a non-existent dragon baby cradled in one arm. While you put your weapon in me. That's a Dark Souls 3 reference. Anyway, we're gonna do Soulsy lore. Oh dear, I think I've had a bit too much already. From software lore in general, which means we're going to be covering Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and the Blood Burns.
The Blood Burn.
The Blood Burns.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you'd like to bring up, or shall I just get us rolling?
I think what might be a good idea to say is, because there's a lot of lure to go with all of this, is maybe we do a generalisation lure episode now. We'll put it out there, and if you folks at home like it, get your questions in to the usual places, and we'll answer more direct, in-depth lure questions for you personally.
Stop in the name of the lure.
Yeah. I am the lure. Right.
Yes. Right, what to start off with? Would you like to know why a lot of Souls makes absolutely no fucking sense?
Why is that?
Well, there's a lot of stuff during the development of a From Software game that gets left on the cutting room floor. The easiest game in which you can explain this is in Demon Souls. Demon Souls, I would argue, makes the most consistent internal sense of all of the Souls games. It's quite clear what you're dealing with in most of the levels. There are some levels where what you are seeing is literally happening. For example, in the Archstone of the Burrow King, you are just seeing a bunch of scaly dudes that did too much mining and literally found a dragon god. And on the other hand, you go to the Archstone of the Shadow Men, and pretty much everything you see there is fuckery. None of it is actually real. You are seeing the burial legends of a race brought to life by the power of the demon souls. So you descend through this place and you meet the adjudicator who judges your soul, and then you end up at the end meeting the Storm Ruler. The Storm Ruler? That's the sword that you kill him with. The Storm King, who is ostensibly their god. It only goes all cunty booby when it gets to the point where they ran out of time and money, basically. And there is a broken archstone at the top of that game where they were planning to do a 6th level and they couldn't finish it. So they basically dummied it out of the game. They didn't even bother to take the teleporter that goes to it out of it. They just went, oh, that one's bugged. Now, Dark Souls is a bit more of a complicated beast. Everybody probably knows by this point that they ran out of time and money by Lost Izalith.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep.
Do you remember the dragon asses of Lost Izalith?
The dragon asses.
Yes.
Dark Souls 1. Yeah. No.
You know when you go through the lava, and good God, that bit, my fucking eyes. You go through the lava and all of these giant dinosaurs are trying to kick you over.
Right, yeah.
You know what those giant dinosaurs are? Dragon asses.
Dragon asses.
Yeah, you remember the petrified dragon that you meet in Valley of the Drakes, and there's another one in the Painted World of Ariandel.
Right.
It's the back end of that model.
Oh, right, so they literally...
Just copy-pasted 1,000,000 times all over the level. Kind of embarrassing, really. Other than that, though, there are a couple more things that got left on the cutting room floor for Dark Souls. One of them is fairly well-known, and one of them not so well-known. The one that's well-known is that Andrea Vestora, the blacksmith, was going to kind of be the guiding figure throughout the game, rather than Kingseeker Framt or Darkstalker Cuff, depending on which path you chose. And he was going to, open up the kiln of the first flame for you. And I believe the reason for this is that the firstborn of Gwyn, who is massively hinted at and who you meet in Dark Souls 3, was originally going to be Andrea Vestora.
Okay.
Because, number one, he looks exactly like Gwyn. And number two, he is... We're told in canon that he was obsessed with weapons, that nothing else in his life mattered. And Andrea Vestora is the only blacksmith in the game who can make the occult weapons, which are specifically designed to hurt gods. They were renamed Dark Weapons in Dark Souls 2 and 3. If you go into the painted world of Ariandel, in which we are told in canon that this is the place where all of the things that the gods fear get shoved under the carpet, sort of like the evil god equivalent of kicking your socks under the bed. If you go to, you will find occult weapons there, and Havel the Rock, who was locked up in a tower forever by Gwyn, and you find him there close to the start of the first game. If you find the secret compartment in his lodgings in Analondo, you'll find occult weapons behind there. So my headcanon was that Andre is so obsessed with making weapons that he will even make weapons to hurt his own kind, and that's why he got kicked out. Of course, that's been retconned now. The other thing, which is not quite so well known about Dark Souls 1, you remember Knight Oscar, the guy that chucks the key down to you at the start of the game?
Yeah.
He was originally planned to be the Solaire character.
Oh, right.
He was going to be the guy that popped up throughout the quest and who helped you out. And depending on whether you chose Framt or Karth as your guidance, he would choose the other side.
Ah.
And you would have to fight him at the end. And he would either say, "Oh, you have neglected the true path," or "Oh, you are just a pitiful fool manipulated by the gods," depending on whether you chose the light or dark path.
Yeah.
So you got that. Dark Souls 2, there's way too much stuff to even talk about, because halfway through the game they basically chucked everything in the bin and remade it from the ground up with a new engine. And this has been an absolute nightmare for people who are trying to reconstruct the alpha of the game from code, because it works on a different engine. It's essentially a different game to all intents and purposes of code. It's like trying to make bits of a game out of a different game for the lore hunters and the data miners, which is a task that I do not envy. Excuse me a second, just lubricate myself.
Me too.
There's one scene in particular that got left in the cutting room floor. When you beat the Scorpioness,
Right.
if you talk to Man Scorpion Targ beforehand, the fight would actually go to the end, and then he would come in and sadly and reluctantly finish her off for you,
Okay.
which is nice.
Yeah.
Not a nice scene. Apparently he just like stabs her and stabs her and stabs her and stabs her, and it's awful and uncomfortable. But yeah, the main difference in Dark Souls 2 is that it was going to be, rather than the bit where you go into the memory of the giants, it was going to be a literal time travel plotline. You would actually be going into the past to fix things. Bloodborne, the stuff that got left on the cutting room floor for Bloodborne is really, really interesting. Now, a lot of people speculated that Bloodborne was going to be Demon Souls 2, because there's two characters in it, in the alpha build, who say Umbasa, which is like the Demon Souls version of Praise the Sun.
Yeah.
Data miners have recovered bits where there were soul items for each character. You would get like the soul of the blood-starved beast. Sorry, the soul of the blood-starved beast. I love saying it like that. You get the soul of the blood-starved beast, and you get the soul of Gascoigne, and so forth. And when you got things, they would make the soul absorption noise from Demon Souls. So it seems on the face of it that it was intended, if not as a sequel, but then originally as a successor to Demon Souls. The other interesting thing about it is how the game was going to function narratively. You remember Lawrence from the Healing Church?
Yeah.
The worst vicar ever.
Yeah.
Lawrence was originally going to be your best mate in the game, and the pair of you come to Yharnam. For whatever reason, you need to receive blood ministration, whether you're sick or whether you're injured or whatever. I don't know, but you get separated and you wake up several weeks later, and Lawrence is gone, and you need to find him. And every dialogue path with each NPC in the alpha build has a question about the world and a "have you seen Lawrence?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, Lawrence went this way, Lawrence went to the cathedral ward, well, Lawrence went up here." And in each important location, you know the bit where you've just defeated, I think it's when you just defeated Vicar Amelia,
Right.
and you touch Lawrence's skull on the altar, and it gives you a big flashback.
Yeah.
That was going to happen in every location, and you would gradually piece together the story of what happened to Lawrence from these flashbacks.
Okay.
But it got changed and changed and changed and changed incrementally, one thing at a time, until I guess at some point it became such a unique entity that it became its own story.
Yeah.
So that essentially is why a lot of the Souls games kind of filled with things where you're not sure whether the item placement and what's not being said is more important than what is being said, or whether it's simply the case that they started something and then went, "Oh, it's shiny," and got distracted somewhere else.
Which is pretty much how you play the game anyway, so the production would be exactly the same.
So yeah, there's that. So what have you been playing lately?
Well, actually, I started up Bloodborne again when it was free on the PS Store, just because everyone seemed to jump on it at the same time. Other than that, I haven't played a goddamn thing, which is fucking annoying.
I have started playing Diablo 3 again.
Ooh.
Lol, at my poor lifestyle choices. Yeah, I found a present for you on it yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
That should be in your inbox now. But yeah, I was, the missus always liked a bit of, two-player ARPG action. We started off on Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance.
Oh, nice.
And gradually graduated to Diablo. And we were bored on holiday, and I said, hey, you know what? Since the last time we played Diablo 3, they've added necromancers. Do you want me to Amazon up a copy? And like I said, lol at my poor life decisions.
Well, that being said, tomorrow we are planning on doing a Diablo 3 evening once I get back from work. Are you around tomorrow?
Nope, working.
Damn it. Well, we will be playing with people from another podcast called the Pocket Mimic, and me and Logan will be on that on Twitch, and we will stream it and have jokes and laughs around 10 o'clock in the evening. If you've got a lull at work and fancy watching us be really bad at Diablo, and obviously unboxing your little gift.
It's really great that all of these events which are happening in the future of your podcast are mentioned in a timely manner, and that you forget none of them.
I forgot all of them, let's be honest. My memory's not very good. Let's be fair. I mean, you have to piece together my memory as if you're searching for lore through Dark Souls. It's an arduous task.
Would you like to talk about how much Japanese you need to know in order to fully appreciate the Souls games?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. Excuse me. Carlsberg Expert
I've got...
is the beverage of choice this evening.
Vodka and Vonic for me.
You actually don't need to know Japanese to appreciate the Souls games, but it does help to understand some elements of it rather than know the actual language, and to understand a couple of elements of Japanese culture. I would say the only thing you need to know about the language is the way in which the definition of undead differs from Western to Eastern culture, because in our culture we have a very clear view that emerges from our use of the word undead. We see very clearly somebody who has died and come back as some kind of monster. The Japanese use of the word undead is more kind of like undying. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hollowing out, as it were.
Hollow's actually a really good translation for it. The actual word is moja, which kind of means like lost or purposeless. Yeah. So to that end, it's quite a good translation. But what you should know is that in Japanese culture, the word moja has a very specific religious connotation, and that is, it is somebody who has gone to one of the Buddhist hells and has been trapped there so long that their mind is broken.
Yeah.
So the whole Eastern deal with the undead is they are not so much somebody who has been and come back, it's somebody who is trapped in the middle. They have stagnated in the cycle.
Hence causing them to become something, other than human, but still holding on to human values.
Yeah, basically. The ultimate, the stylistic end is the same, but it adds a little bit of flavour. Its stagnation is, in particular, seen as a poisonous thing in Japanese culture. Stagnant pools, as opposed to running water, are seen as very, very bad. Probably because, that's where mosquitoes live.
Yeah.
Water is a really interesting one for Bloodborne as well. A lot of different cultures have the idea of things which cast reflections being somehow spiritual, some kind of spiritual medium. There are African tribes that believe that if you are caught between two mirrors, then you'll be infinitely replicated and your soul will be stretched to infinitesimally thinness, as mentioned in The Witches thing in Terry Pratchett, and that they shouldn't have their photo taken because it stretches out their soul. There's any number of Western stories, from Doctor Who to Alice Through the Looking Glass, about mirrors being a transitory thing. In Japanese, though, water is as well. Water is the idea of water and reflections in water as a medium for transition is a very big thing. A case in point, you remember Inuyasha?
No.
You never watched Inuyasha?
Probably.
The thing that Takahashi did after Ranma.
Oh, with the kappa thing.
And the dog thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
she moved between the present day and the past by going down a well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea of water as a spiritual vessel or a transitory medium is very big in Bloodborne. There's, for example, Bergenworth, where you have to jump into the water to go and fight Rom the Vacuous Spider.
Well, that's a fucker as well. That's where I got up to the other day.
It's annoying. It's like me and the Crystal Sages. It's really, really easy, but you always get fucking stuck there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pain in the ass. Even if you know what you're doing, there's some stupid reason that you end up fucking up.
Yeah, and in the Old Hunters DLC, you've got this nightmare healing facility that looks straight out of the recent Cybermen episodes of Doctor Who, where the Healing Church have got, people lined up in beds, and they look like they're being healed, but as you go deeper into the facility, you find these giant-headed patients,
yeah, and they're being
where the church is, what they're basically doing is injecting their heads with salt water and putting the, those little ghostly leeches, the phantasms?
Yeah.
All the single leeches. It's leeches night, and the leeches might give you a leechy fright right on your taint. Right on your taint.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, the phantasms are a whole discussion for another time, especially given their juxtaposition with the vermin. But I digress. What they're doing is they're pumping people's heads full of water and shoving the leeches in there to live with them, in the hope that, in much the same way that you can hear the sea through a seashell, they will be able to hear the voices of the great ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a cultural thing, that is. Now you can go around being all cultured as fuck.
Because that's what we're renowned for on this show, being really cultural. Wow, what was that?
I don't know what was what.
There was some weird, mysterious feedback on your end.
I don't know, might have been a lorry going by outside. This microphone is quite sensitive.
I see.
Especially around this tip.
You're bringing it back down now.
It's the voodoo I do.
Who did the voodoo?
I make this shit look good. You lot just look like a bunch of drunken arseholes.
We are a bunch of drunken arseholes. That's the whole appeal.
And the mystery was solved. Speaking of annoying arseholes, would you like to know why the Emerald Herald is such an annoying arsehole?
Go on then.
How much of Demon Souls have you played?
I retardedly played it on the PS3, obviously, while I was in Japan, when the first sort of complete your back catalogue for in February challenge started. And my first go was Demon
Christ,
Souls.
I forgot all about that this year.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
Better get back on Bubble Bobble.
That's the first backlog. The very first. Okay, so yeah, I played a fair bit, but to the point where I was just repeating certain areas to the point where it was muscle memory and did not pay attention to anything else that was going on.
Right.
While drinking tons of Chu-Hai.
You've met... Oh, God. Now you're making me nostalgic.
I miss Chu-Hai so much. Why do they not sell it in this country?
They do. It's called WKD.
It tastes nothing like it. Nothing, I tell you.
Yes, but everything's better in Japan.
That's true.
Except pornography.
Well, you can get uncensored.
And RPGs.
Well.
Oh, we're going to get some hate now for that.
Yeah, that was... Different class of game. There's a whole subculture of JRPGs. And
The management wishes it to be known that Mr. Sex's views are not necessarily representative.
What he just said.
Yeah. You've met the Maiden in Black, then?
Yes.
Sexy bitch. Yeah, the Maiden in Black is...
Oh, shit.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, God, have you dropped your shit in your lap?
No. I saw the announcement for Monster Hunter Generations on the Switch.
Oh my God, are they bringing it over?
It's not the same game. It's a Generations game, so it'll have more in it than the fucking Monster Hunter World.
No, Monster Hunter Generations is... That's the one after Monster Hunter 4.
Okay, so this one's Monster Hunter
It's
Generations.
been out. It's been out for well over a year on the Switch. They've just refused to localize it.
Oh, well, it's coming. It's on its way.
You're going to be a bit disappointed if you're coming to that from World.
I'm sure I'll get through it, but it's just something else to play on my Switch. It's just sitting there.
That's like going back to Tekken 1 from Tekken 2.
Fair enough.
But yeah, new Monster Hunter game, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually never played Generations. It's the only one I haven't played.
Well, there you go. We'll all get on it and do a review show.
I am down with that.
Yeah.
I like the cut of your jib, sir, and the sound of your town.
Yeah.
Right, the Maiden in Black. She is best waifu in the Dark Souls universe.
You keep talking and explaining, and I'll be back in about 2.5 seconds.
Okay. Hardly seems worth mentioning, really. Maiden in Black. She is number one best waifu in the Dark Souls series. She is... Excuse me a second. Blah, gotta stop smoking. She is played by a Ukrainian model called Iveta Moledashlova, who is actually as hot as she sounds. She has not done any voice acting roles ever, apart from The Maiden in Black and The Doll and Lady Maria in Bloodborne. The thing about the Emerald Herald is that everything about her was an attempt to artificially recreate the mania over the Maiden in Black. And this is why she's got that annoying fucking catchphrase. Bearer of the curse, seek souls, seek big, veiny, throbbing souls, lest this land swallow you whole. Dark Souls fans actually, some of them refer to the Emerald Herald as bear seek less, because that is what you hear as you frantically skip through her annoying fucking catchphrase. And the reason she has that is because the Maiden in Black, every time you level up, has this catchphrase which goes,
Soul of the mind, key to life's ether. Soul of the lost, withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. So the world might be mended.
But when you do it on purpose, well, it's sort of like WWE fans and Roman Reigns. I mean, people will engage in the most horrendously embarrassing behaviour. People will pay thousands of dollars to go and sit in a stadium and watch grown men act like anime dudes. But once you acknowledge that they're doing it, and say, hey, you marked out over that, now you'll mark out over this, suddenly they come over all coy and intelligent. My point is that you can't manufacture waifu. It just happens. Shh. It's already happening. And that little animation where she's sort of like dandling her feet over the edge of a rock, that's the Maiden in Black as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why she's such an awful, awful character.
But awesome.
You like the Emerald Herald?
No.
Well, good then.
All good.
Shut your gob.
We're on a... so, what have we done so far? See, this is how bad my memory is.
We've done the stuff left on the cutting room floor. We've done a few Japanese language and culture notes, and we've talked about the Emerald Herald. Shall we talk about the cars?
Cars?
Yeah, how do the cars fit into all this?
Go for it.
Somebody once asked one of Pixar's designers, why doesn't Lightning McQueen ever open his door? And the designer responded, that's where his brain is. So we know that these are living entities. We know that these cars are not actually cars.
Yeah.
Now, there's one fan theory. I think I saw it on Film Theory, and Matt Pat proposed the idea that these cars aren't made of metal; they're made of chitin, like an insect. In fact, there is actually one Pixar short in which we see beetles, and they are literally VW beetles.
What?
With little wings.
Oh, right.
So we know that the cars are physically capable of growing chitin. And it was advanced that we get the cars from an evolution of A Bug's Life, which presumably takes place after, by and large, Destroy the Planet, leading to the events of WALL-E.
Fuck me, so they're all connected. Okay.
Oh, you didn't know?
Well, I've read certain things, but I've never taken a deep dive into what people are actually talking about.
Well, at the centre of it all is the By and Large Corporation.
Right.
And we first see the name By and Large on the batteries of Buzz Lightyear.
Right.
And I think the next time we see it, By and Large is the corporation that throws What's-His-Face out of his home at the start of Up.
Yeah.
And they're also the corporation which pollutes the planet beyond higher habitation, leading to the events of WALL-E.
Yeah. But is there anything in A Bug's Life that's By and Large?
No, there isn't, but presumably we're seeing insects in a world with no humans, and they're starting to form their own society.
Right, yeah.
So presumably this takes place after the events of WALL-E, and we could conceivably get them evolving into the cars from that. It's never seemed to me to be a particularly satisfying theory, though, because we know from a little visual gag in the Cars movie that there was, for example, a Cars Hitler.
Yeah.
We also know that the cars are gradually advancing in technology, which doesn't make sense if they're reproducing. We've got you've got your 50s muscle cars like Doc Hudson. Then you're getting your 70s and 80s sports cars like Lightning McQueen. And then in Cars 3, you've got Jackson Storm, who's like a super engineered aerodynamic smart car.
Right.
I mean, if they're reproducing physically and biologically, then why would this advancement be happening so fast? And if they're not, if they're being made in a yard, then why aren't they making all the Jackson Storms now?
I see.
Now, here's what I think is happening. How do the toys come to life in Toy Story?
I don't know. Go on, tell me.
I can't believe I made you say doy. I didn't even know that was a thing people actually did. I thought it was just like a comedy beat in sitcoms or something.
Well, it was.
Doy!
Well, that was a comedy beat, but now you bring it up, it makes it sound stupid.
In Toy Story, the toys are brought to life by the love invested in them by their owners. We've seen in Toy Story that if you take that, if a toy is abandoned for too long, it essentially dies.
Right.
Now, what thing do adults love more than children love their toys?
Alcohol.
Yes, but not a transitory thing, a thing that you keep.
Your children.
Cars. The answer is cars.
So the cars got life the same way that toys got life in Toy Story.
Yeah, but it's happening in a lapse. It's happening on a time lapse.
All right.
Years and years after humans have departed the planet, the cars are being brought back to life by the memories of the love invested in them by their owners.
Okay.
And this is why the evolution of car society is essentially mirroring that of the progression of human society. Only they don't know what humans are. They're confused.
Hence why there's a Hitler car.
Yeah. And hence why Doc Hudson, the Hudson Hornet, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but there was a real guy who drove that car, who called himself the Hudson Hornet. And he has exactly the same career trajectory as Doc Hudson does in the movies. He came out of nowhere. He called himself the Hudson Hornet. He ruled the racetracks for 2 years, and then he got retired due to an injury.
Okay.
I believe that the cars are coming to life. They are imbued with the memories of their drivers, but they see it through the lens of it happening to them.
Okay. So that's like, I don't know. Is that a theory you've come up with or something you've read on the internet?
It's a mixture.
Because that's fucking deep and that's made me...
There's a lot
depressed.
of cross-pollination in the theorist community. What were we talking about again?
I don't know. Dark Souls originally. I don't know.
Oh, fuck. Sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay, sorry. I'd better bring things back on track. I've got one more thing to talk about. Would you like to talk about what the doll actually is?
The doll.
The doll from Bloodborne.
All right, yeah, go on.
Right. Bit of a contentious one, this. Because in the Old Hunters DLC, we are told that Gehrman creates the doll as a recreation of Lady Maria.
Yeah.
Because he was in love with her and he was too nervous to ever go and mac on her.
Right.
There are a number of problems with this. For a start, the doll looks nothing like her.
Yeah.
Secondly, what's the first thing that Gehrman tells you about the doll?
It only happened the other day. Well, I say the other day, about a week ago. I watched this whole bit again. I can't remember. You tell me.
He tells you you may use her if you like.
Yes.
Which is a bit weird. Like, hey, giant doll over there. Not saying you're going to put your dick in it, but am I right, bros? It's like the second most inappropriate joke that anyone has ever made in a Dark Souls game.
What was the first, obviously?
Where Dark Souls 3, when Patches locks you in the graves of the Firekeepers, and he says there's plenty of women for you down there. Implying that you would commit necrophilia with the mummified remains of hundreds of firekeepers.
I don't know. What is that? The doll?
Anyway,
yeah.
Point being, here, if like this is, it doesn't sit right, does it? I mean, it's weird when he says it out of context, but. Oh yeah, here's this life-size model of the love of my life that I was devoted to. You gonna fuck it? Because, you know, you gonna fuck it, you ma fuck it. There's also the way in which Gehrman and the doll interact with each other. He seems, for the most part, to be pretty creeped out by her. And the only time she ever acknowledges him is when she pushes his wheelchair, which happens almost exclusively off camera.
Yeah, when he moves about, yeah.
Yeah. And there's the fact that she's obviously an agent of the Moon Presence in some way. Because she talks to the messengers. In the special ending, she cradles you when what happens to you happens to you. Oh, the single leeches! she just doesn't seem to have any connection to him at all. There's a bit which is either in the alpha build or is a rare event in the early versions of the game where you can find her praying to the moon presence for your safety. And I don't see why Gurman would have programmed these things into her. It just seems odd, and it doesn't make any sense. Now, as to whether the doll is based physically on a real person, that's perfectly possible because she wears Canehurst clothes. And here's a really interesting thing: on the disc, there is an asset for a coffin which is meant to appear in Canehurst, but never spawns in for some reason. And on the coffin is a flower, and it's the same flower that the doll wears in her hair.
Right. So that's supposed to be her. Okay.
Possibly. It might just be a crazy coincidence. But it has all of the hallmarks of something that they started and then just decided to draw a line under and fuck off to the pub.
Which seems like a lot of it anyway, where so much stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. Maybe this was one of it, and maybe just because of a pub crawl.
But yeah, I mean...
Where's From Software based? Is it Tokyo itself?
I've got no idea.
I was thinking like...
I would assume so.
Yeah, by the Konami building, end of the Roppongi High Road, just like, give up, fuck off down Roppongi High Road, get absolutely blitzed, come back the next morning and forget what you was doing. It's completely possible.
So yeah, I mean, Gurman is pretty much a sociopath running around decapitating people with a scythe. And it's a lovely idea that he might be a lovely, shy boy who lives alone with the real doll he made of his waifu. But it just doesn't sit, does it?
No.
And there's, like we said, it goes back to a lot of things we've said in this conversation, by which I mean fucking monologue.
Sorry, as I said...
Thanks, but I only told you 4 weeks ago to start preparing questions for this.
Listen, I put it out on Twitter just because no one on Twitter wanted to answer me, and I've been busy, and I'm only just getting drunk now, so I'm a little bit more chatty, but also well out of the conversation of Dark Souls. Honestly.
I never told you why Dark Souls 3 is such a mess.
Well, that being said, would you like...
Because it's colossally badly written.
Colossally badly written, and the others were so well written that obviously everything's in it and easy to find. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I want to give a shout-out to a podcast called Sinclair Law.
Sinclair Law?
Yes.
Okay.
It has 2 hosts, Sinclair and Richard. Sinclair is a Russian girl who lives in Canada. Sinclair is really, really good at Souls, and she loves it, but she's only just started playing it. And Richard is an old hand and knows everything about the law. And she says what she's been doing, and he explains the law to her. And they're not very good at it, and they keep getting distracted and giggling a lot. It's really entertaining to watch. They've just passed their 2,000 subscriber mark, which is criminal. Absolutely criminal. They should have way more.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I will subscribe today, and we shall endeavour to imitate this. I will obviously be the Russian girl from Canada, and you can be Richard. And if people want to hear that, we can do a more regular segment on DDB Talk Dark Souls.
But yeah, Richard said something interesting. He compared why Dark Souls with Gwendolyn is not treated as a disappointment, whereas Dark Souls 3 with Queen Lothric is. And that is that you finally get to your big castle destination in Dark Souls 1, and it's been built up for the whole game. And when you get there and there are no answers there for you and everything is fake, it actually comes across as something that they've planned. It actually comes across as something in the narrative. Like you built yourself up for the whole thing expecting this big payoff, and it was all a lie. That in itself is a payoff. Whereas Dark Souls 3, they basically just never mention Queen Lothric. It's just a thing where they started to write the story and then went, oh, a shiny, and went somewhere else.
Seems like the whole thing is sort of come around in full circle, to be honest with you.
But hey, that's just a theory.
Theories being as theories might, and something else profound. Yeah, it's been amazing. But
yeah, isn't the whole tantalizing element of this is that you could be right, is that you could strike out in some weird random direction and actually discover something incredible, like that bloke who called the whole hold the door thing on Game of Thrones like about 10 years before it happened.
Yeah, that was impressive. I read that. I haven't actually watched that, but yeah.
When knowledge feels right, there's certain knowledge that you've got no proof of, that it just feels right, and you have to hang on to it in your soul. And some of it turns out to be wrong, like my theory about Andre Vestora, but sometimes there's just stuff like, I know in my heart of hearts that when Harry and Meghan are married, Prince Philip is going to start leaving bananas around the palace. I have a suspicion that has AIDS. I've never been round his bins looking for AIDS pills, and therefore have absolutely no reason why I think this. But there it is. I think that has AIDS.
And if it turns out to be true, will you feel bad or good?
Oh, we're into some dark shit now. Let's lighten the mood. My point is that the bloke who says that GIFs is pronounced GIFs invented GIFs and is fucking wrong. So when Cadbury's tell you that cream eggs is pronounced creme eggs, say, no, it isn't.
Okay, here's one for you then. So it's like Hayao Miyazaki said, Studio Ghibli, the correct pronunciation of the fighter plane that he was trying to pronounce was Ghibli. Is it Ghibli or Ghibli?
I ain't got a clue. They write it Ghibli in the katakana.
Yeah, but in the English version it is Ghibli, and that's how the Italians pronounce the plane, Ghibli. So it's one of them. Woo! Who's wrong? Majority or the creator?
The makers of Nutella say it's pronounced Nutella. No, it isn't.
No, it isn't. It's Nutella. And it doesn't taste as good as everyone said it does.
That's the best question you come up with. How do you pronounce Ghibli? Well played, my friend. Well played.
Well, yeah, I've done 2 pints of vodka now, so it's starting to kick in. Maybe we should start recording again and I'll say some more stuff, but I doubt it.
Well, you were the one that said we had to do this at 8 o'clock. You could have had a skinful first.
Well, this is the point. I've got to then get up again at 4 o'clock in the morning to go back to work. So it's like, otherwise we need to work out a different time. We're in different time zones, Dalek. Different time zones, different things.
No, we're not. Well, I'm in Essex, you're in Dagenham.
No, we're not in Dagenham.
There isn't a time differential. It's not like we're at the front and back of the Mondasian ship.
No, but the thing is that you work your nights and I work long days and nights, and it all sort of melds into nothingness. It's very hard for me and you to get a conversation at the same time, especially being this drunk. Well, that's the end of our Dark Souls talk with Dalek, and we will be back shortly. And obviously, if you've enjoyed this, let us know, because we'd love to have Dalek on a lot more. We might even go and kidnap him in the DDB-mobile when that finally comes about.
Oh, wait, you were serious.
Well, there's still talk. End of June. End of June. It's going to be here, apparently. Ask Renegade Logan X.
You will have made more. You will have bought more cars since New Year than you have made podcasts.
That's not true. We don't buy cars. We borrow them. Anyway.
Appropriate.
Anyway. I've been Shogun Pumba. Obviously, what you're listening to, Them Drunk Blokes. Go and check out what Dalek told you to. Dalek, do you want to say anything else before you leave?
I don't feel so good.
Anyway, he's been Dalek, I've been Pumba. there'll probably be some added on bits around this, and if we can get Dalek on in the future, we will get him to talk more Souls knowledge and more of his wise, wisdomy words from around the world. Anyway, bye everybody.
Good night, everybody.
But just adding faith, hope, baby, I can make you a song grow.
You have been listening to Shogun Pumbaa and DalekSex. Dem Drunk Blokes Talk Shite was a Dem Drunk Blokes production, with music and editing by DalekSex. We apologise for the appalling volume levels on this episode, which were due to Shogun Pumbaa thinking that an equaliser is a television programme starring Edward Woodward. Follow us on Twitter at DemDrunkBlokes and follow me at The Voice of Sex.